We are joined by Ray Thompson, father and part coach of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, known for many more things than just that. Ray, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be on with you guys. Doing great. Glad to be here.
And we really appreciate, as Ben told you before we started the recording, how easy it was to get a hold of you. And Ben, if you want to, go ahead and get right into it, man. I know you were excited for this one.
Yeah, obviously, he doesn't need any introduction from yourself. Any of the good MMA fans will know Ray's background. Owner and head coach of Upstate Karate in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Hope I got that right with a British accent and that.
That was perfect.
A veteran of the game since 1974, I believe, Ray. But
yes, that is correct.
For these so-called casuals of today's age, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, Ray.
Well, I started my karate training in March of 1974. Back then, that was pretty much karate and judo were the two big styles. Judo more so than karate back then. So I literally started doing judo. Didn't do it very long. Judo was pretty rough. So, and it wasn't my desire. You know, as a kid, my mother was an Elvis Presley fan. So needless to say, when there was an Elvis movie on, us kids, we were watching it. So I would watch it, and I grew a fanship I became a huge Elvis fan because of that. And then of course, when you see Elvis out there doing his thing, he's wooing the ladies and he's singing and he's dancing and he's doing all this cool stuff. But every now and then you'd see Elvis beat up the bad guy with this really cool stuff. And come to find out it was karate. So I thought to myself, you know what? I can't sing, you can't dance. I'm not pretty like Elvis, but just maybe just a little bit. If I learn some of that karate stuff, I might be a little bit cool like him, So that was my thinking as a kid. So, I went into school. I went to military school. I spent 4 years in military school, high school, some of the best 4 years of my life. But my senior year in school, there's a gentleman that came to our school and offered to teach karate at our school for about 3 or 4 months, just prior to me graduating. So when he came, I jumped in, and I've been at it ever since. It's probably one of the best moves of my life, without a doubt, in that, this is what I do for a living. I teach martial arts, karate, various different styles. Of course, the striking arts is my thing. If there's a thing, everybody's got a thing. Striking arts, my thing. But in order to be an MMA coach, you got to be diversified as a coach, or have coaches on staff that can cover those areas that you're not quite as strong at. My strength is, of course, striking, movement, footwork. So, we have wrestling coaches. I have jiu-jitsu coaches. So we have a pretty diverse for a karate school, and that's predominantly what we are. We have a pretty diverse coaching staff, so we're pretty blessed.
So to venture off topic a little bit, I don't know how much you know of it, but recently the Combat Karate League that started recently, have you seen any of it?
I have.
How do you feel about the product? It's been pretty entertaining for someone who hasn't seen much karate growing up.
It's a striking style. It's fast. I love the MMA gloves. I also love the long pants. I think that's cool. Just keep a little bit of the
it diversifies.
Plastic. Yeah. And it also separates it from Muay Thai, separates it from, any of the other striking arts. So I think that's really cool. Those guys that fight in the world, karate combat, those guys are upper echelon karate fighters for sure. And they're all over the world. Those guys come from all over the world.
Yeah.
They're fast. They're dynamic. I'm glad there's not a lot of opportunity, a lot of chance of getting stuck on the ground. So get these guys a chance to show off their striking skills. In the whole scheme of things, I think it's a pretty dynamic and entertaining genre of fighting.
It definitely is. And to double back a little bit, I'm glad you touched on Elvis Presley, because we were going to ask about that a little bit later on. But to move into our next question. So coming from the old school, basically the roots of fighting, basically in terms of MMA at least. You made your combat sports debut back in '74. Is there anything nowadays that you just don't like or are kind of against that happens in the modern day fight world, especially in MMA and the UFC in particular?
If I were to, if it were up to me, I would make one change when it comes to, as far as mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the best thing that's happened to martial arts in America, around the world. You got to thank the Gracies for that. The Gracies came in and they opened up everybody's ideas. They opened up the karate guys, the judo guys, the boxers, the wrestlers. They opened up everybody's eyes, the grappling arts. So, the karate guys were the worst in that they thought that, and I was one of them. I was in that, in that mix, and that I thought, karate's the best. It was the only way. It's the best way. If you're gonna develop a fighting art, it should be only karate. But then I saw the first UFC. It was held in Denver, Colorado, and I saw Hoist Gracie just go in there and just pick everybody apart. And I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe my karate style has some holes in it. Maybe we got some weaknesses. So I was all for it, man. God bless my karate teacher, a gentleman by the name of Tommy Siegler. He was and still is one of those instructors that just, whatever works, let's just grab it and learn it, and let's develop it, and let's bring it into the fold. Professor Siegler is, so I kind of, he was a guy that was mentoring me, and he still does to this day. And he was the guy that just opened up my eyes to the need to be more diverse style, or a more diverse athlete. It's definitely the idea Bruce Lee set forth in his Jeet Kune Do style. And so, it made a lot of sense. And when I saw the first MMA product happen, I thought, we got to do some things. We got to change some things. We got to open up our thinking and see if we can't develop what we do better so that it's more functional for everybody. If I were to get back to the original question, sorry, I got off on a tangent.
Oh, you're
but
perfectly
if I were to change a rule or something that happens in MMA today, it would be the side kick directly to the thigh, just above the knee.
Oh yeah.
John Jones.
They say it's not to the knee when they kick the thigh, and really it's not. It's not to the knee, but it affects the knee.
It does affect the knee. If anybody doubts that, just hit yourself lightly in that spot, and you can tell your knee would hurt.
Yeah. And it blocks that knee out. You got, when Stephen fought Darren Till, boom, side kicked him in that leg. Stephen had to have knee surgery after that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we made the statement online, on social media that we just, we thought that was a pretty cheap shot. Of course, Darren Till came back and he punched back at us on the whole thing.
Oh, he punches back at everyone.
Yeah, but he also came back at a later date and apologized to us because it happened to him. He got his knee injured. I think he had to have surgery.
I believe he did. Yeah. And I remember the statement. I remember that statement.
Yeah. So, it was okay, well and good whenever you were dishing it out, but when you got a little taste of your own medicine, then you decided to change your tune. So, but anyway, if it were me, if I were to make a change, it would be nothing directly to the quad that opposes the natural bending of the knee. That's what I would change.
I think that's picture perfect.
Yeah.
Any straight line kicks, like any side kicks or any driving straight line kicks, like a front kick with the bottom of the heel straight on. You know what I'm saying? Like anything. Now a round kick or, you know, foot coming around in a circular action to the quad, you know, okay, so what? But when you drive something directly against the natural bending of the knee, I think there should be something done about that. Because there's got a lot of guys been injured big time to that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can get behind that. You do see a lot of people utilize that technique, and you see the damage it does. Obviously, Stephen, Darren Till, there's two examples, but the list goes on.
Robert Whitaker, Yoel Romero. See, Yoel did it to Robert and hurt his knee. So when they fought the second match, Robert did it to Yoel. Paid it back. So everybody's damaging everybody. And John Jones, I'm going to have to say, my first recollection of somebody using that, I think, was John Jones. There may have been somebody prior to that, but I think he's the
poster boy.
I mean, the Thiago Santos fight is the one for John Jones, isn't it? The damage he did with that kick to his leg. I mean,
both knees blew out.
Yeah.
That was so. And but nobody says anything about it.
Yeah.
It's such a destructive style, and it's so dynamic, and it's so. I mean, it's a mess. But anyway,
in a game of angles, being able to come at from that angle, you could throw that kick wherever you want it in the exact same amount of time. So it's hard to make people stop throwing it, but the damage it does is a lot more than people could realize.
It's a lot more than a bruise. It's a lot more than a swole up knee. It's ligaments and tendon cartilage damage. It's a bad thing. But anyway, that's what I would change.
Yeah. Yes. So moving on from that, Ray, obviously you come from the old school background and you've had plenty of fights. And after a little bit of research, I managed to dig out something about the toughest man in South Carolina. Was it 1980? If you could tell me a little bit about this and, you know, what fighting was like back then for yourself.
Okay. So it was a tournament. There was a gentleman came out of Atlanta, which is 2 hours away from us, Atlanta, Georgia. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we didn't even have an athletic commission in South Carolina at the time. So that's why the guy came from Georgia to South Carolina to promote a tournament that had essentially 3 rules. One, you couldn't bite. You couldn't hit directly into the throat. And you couldn't strike up between the legs to the groin. You can strike straight in the front, punches, kick, knees. Oh, one more rule. You only had 10 seconds on the ground to do whatever you wanted to do. You had 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, you were stood back up and you go back at it. Knees, you can strike the knees at any angle. Didn't matter. Elbows, knees. You can, like I said, you can kick the knees at any angle, straight on to the side, whatever. One weight class, 165 and up was the weight class. And there was 32 fighters. There was a whole bunch more signed up to participate, but they only selected 32. And the smallest guy in the tournament was 165 pounds. And the biggest guy in the tournament was 340 pounds. So they made 2 16-man brackets. And I think what they did was they put the bigger guys on one side and the smaller guys on the other. And they let everybody fight up to the top 2 guys. So I ended up in the big guys bracket. I think I weighed maybe 215, 16 pounds. About the same as I weigh right now, actually. But I was a whole lot more muscular back then. The muscularity is not quite there today. But anyway.
Well, fighting since 74, I think you've got an excuse. Not like the rest of us.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. But so fighting through the course of the big guys bracket, it was a 2-day event. I fought once on Friday. I got a whole story about that. That's kind of crazy. Then I had to fight 4 times on Saturday. So I ended up fighting on Saturday the biggest guy in the tournament and the smallest guy in the tournament. And I had to fight the smallest guy in the tournament for the championship. But on day one, on Friday, a little quick story, if you got time. On Friday,
Plenty.
so I'm in the back, right? I'm a karate guy. I had not planned on competing in this tournament at all. So my instructor, a guy named Tommy Siegler, a little bitty fella, he was in his, maybe he might have weighed 160 pounds. He literally had to put weights in his pockets to go register so that he can compete. Well, he was training. I'm working. I'm a working man. I'm working. I'm doing my working every day. And he, of course, he was in the karate life. He was living that life and doing that. I trained. I went to karate classes and I trained, but I had a real job. But him, that's what he did for a living. So he's training. Him and another guy from our school were training, and they both were small. So I'm working. They said, "You going to fight in this?" I said, "No, I ain't got time for that. I'm not going to do that. I got work. I got to go to work." So he's training. So about 3 or 4 days prior to the event, he's running. He's doing his road work and all that. He steps off a curb and rolls his ankle. Ankle blows up. So he's out of the tournament. There's another guy from our school who's training. He went on to compete in the tournament. But my teacher, Tommy Siegler, Professor Siegler, he said, "Man, you gotta fight in this thing. You gotta fight. You're big and you can this and you can that." I said, "Man, I'm not trained to lick." He said, "You got to." So he shamed me into competing in it. He laid that on me. It's for the team. It's for the school. Blah blah blah. So, you got to make. You got to save face. This and that. Oh man. Okay. So 2 days I went and ran, trained specifically for 2 days. So come Friday, I'm there at the event. I'm in the back. I'm warming up a little bit. And this guy, this country bumpkin, short, stubby guy, jelly rolls, kind of, he walks up to us, I'm over there kicking, punching, kicking. He walks up and says, "You one of them karate guys, ain't you?" I said, I'm kind of like, getting it obvious. I'm thinking, I said, "Yeah, man, I'm one of them karate guys." He said, "Let me ask you a question, man." I said, "Okay." I wanted to go away because I'm nervous and, I'm getting ready and warming up. He said, "If I was ever going to fight one of our karate guys," he said, "what would I do if he was going to throw one of them karate kicks at me?" I'm thinking, I got to get this guy to go away. So I said, "Well, when he throws that kick, you just knock his kick down and punch him in the head." He goes, "Oh, wow, great, man. Thank you. And he walks off, right? So I'm warming up. So they call my name, time for me to fight. So I stepped in the ring and down there in the corner. Then they call this other guy's name. Guess who steps on the other side?
Oh no, Mr.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
The country bumpkin steps in the other side. So I'm like, I see him. So I'm furious. And jelly rolls, one of those kind of guys. He comes straight up. I think he came straight from the hamburger joint, straight to the tournament. But I told myself, I looked at my corner. I said, I'm gonna blast this guy. I'm gonna take him out early. So I get out there and ding, I move out to the middle. I get out there and I get a big old stepping side kick. I was going to sink it into his stomach. Guess what he does? He blocks it down and he punches me right in the head. Sure did. He hit me. Thank goodness I got a hard head. Of course, he didn't get a good shot. But anyway, I ended up putting on him pretty good. It didn't last very long, but he did exactly what I told him to do. I threw that kick. He knocked it down with that forearm and punched me right in the head. Boom. I'm like, oh, man. So anyway.
So however many years before the first ever UFC in '93, they used to say the toughest guys in the world fight 3 times in one day. Are you telling us Ray Thompson fought 4 times in one day 10 years before the UFC was a thing?
I did. I fought 4 times. I fought 1 time on Friday, 4 times on Saturday. I fought a guy that was the first guy I fought on Saturday was a guy about 190 pounds, rock solid dude, man. Anyway, we just walked out to the middle and we just started throwing, and we hit each other in the head equally as much, but I think my head was just a little bit harder. I was able to take care of him, finish him. and we didn't even block. We just started to, back in the 80s, karate, full contact karate was such a new style. It's a new art. You know what I'm saying? Whereas continuous kickboxing, that was new. You know what I'm saying? So we just stood in the middle of the ring and just threw it until one guy couldn't stand it anymore. And thank goodness I had a hard enough head to weather that one. So I ended up taking that guy out, boom, 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 dropped him down to his knees, grabbed him by his shoulders, sunk 2 good knee strikes right to the solar plexus, face planted him. Thank goodness that was over. That was fight number 1.
To the solar plexus. Oof, that's even worse than taking it to the head.
Yeah, I just straight to the solar plexus. Got that over with, thank goodness. I did have a huge headache after that fight, but I had 3 more fights to go. Then I think my next fight, I had to fight a guy. This guy was 6'4"-ish, 5-ish, big dude. He was 230 something. His name is Otis White. This guy was a mountain. He was scary. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So that was my second fight on day 2. So I'm scared to death. I'm over on this guy. No, literally, he walks up the steps and he steps over the ropes. 1 foot over the ropes, other foot over the ropes. He's tall. He's a very intimidating presence standing on the other side. So here I am looking across the ring at this guy. I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to deal with this. The day before, I saw this guy, his first match. He took a guy, and the guy backed him into the ropes, and the guy was probably a head shorter than him. And he stepped up on the bottom ropes, and he reached up, and he dropped the elbow right on this guy's head. Boom! Split this guy's head wide open. Game over. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. He was just as cool as a cucumber. This guy was wailing on him. He just backs up to the edge of the ropes, and he takes his feet and he steps on the bottom rope. Boom. Then he reaches up high as he can and he drops the elbow right on top of his head. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So it's my turn to fight him. So I look across the ring and I see him. I'm scared to death. I'm trying to be, I'm trying to make it not so obvious that I'm fearing for my life. So ding, the bell rang. I shot across that ring and I met him in his corner. So I started jumping. Boom, boom. I started throwing. I was just throwing, hoping to hit something. I was just wide open. So I had him back to the ropes. I stepped off to the side and I threw a back leg around kick and hit him right in his cup. And I aimed for it because it was a legal shot. I hit him straight in the cup. He ended up telling me later that I broke his cup. So, boom.
How hard do you have to kick to break a cup?
I have no idea. Either I had to kick him pretty hard or there was something relatively firm supporting the cup enough to where, it broke. So anyway, I ended up doing that. And he flinched and he grabbed himself and I jumped on him. Boom, boom, boom. I was just throwing whatever I could throw. So he ended up taking his head and dipping through between the top rope and the second rope, which automatically he was automatically DQ'd at that point. If you willfully step any part of you outside the ring ropes, then you're disqualified from the tournament. Thank goodness he did that. He took his head outside the ropes, and when he did, he turned away from me and he stuck his head through the ropes. So I wasn't about to let him get back in. So I'm up on his back, punching, trying to reach his big old head. He was way out yonder. I was swinging for the fences. But thank goodness the referee jumped in there and stopped the match. And I was like, I'm glad that didn't have to go the distance. So that was match number 2. Then match number 3, I had to fight a guy. He was 340 pounds. He was huge. He was probably 6'1", 6'2", but he was just so big and strong. What's his name? His name was Joel Lovinggood was his name. He was out of North Carolina. He was a police officer, I think is what he told me. But anyway, he he came, apparently he had won a bare knuckle tournament up in North Carolina. This is what he told me after the event was over. I went and talked to him a little bit. He had won a bare knuckle event up in North Carolina. He was coming to South Carolina to fight this one. And there was some other event going to happen in Georgia. And he called it the Triple Crown. I had never heard of it. So apparently there was 3 events that circle called the Triple Crown. And he came to Greenville to compete in that part of the Triple Crown. Of course, I ended up beating him for that. But this guy, he was big. He was huge. He pinned me against the ropes. He was pounding, and he was doing that. I hit this guy with everything I had. I punched him in his head. I kicked him in the legs. I even did one of them kung fu flick, running, flying side kicks. I was hitting him, boom, boom. He backed up against the ropes. He's trying to catch his breath. He's a huge guy, very fat, but he was backed up against the ropes. And I told myself, I'm going to stop this guy right here. So I took about 2 steps and jumped up in the air, did one of Bruce Lee flying side kicks. I hit him right in the middle of his chest. Boom! He bounced off the ropes, threw his guard up, started walking toward me like it didn't faze him a lick. I thought to myself, oh, crap. What am I going to do now? I gave him my best shot. So I told myself, you know what? Time to move. So every time he would come at me, I had longer arms. He didn't turn well. He went straight ahead well, but he didn't make any turns. So when you come at me, I would step off to the side, pop, 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 hit him as he went by. And he would turn, hit the ropes, and he would turn around and come straight at me again. When he come at me, I would step outside, poop, 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 hit him as he went past. So that fight went the distance. I had to fight the whole 3 rounds. I ended up outscoring him. Then I had to fight the smallest guy at the tournament. So when I went in the back to talk to the big guy, Joel, he said, hey, I got to tell you something. I said, okay. He said, I just want to let you know that the next guy you got to fight, the little guy, 165-pounder, he was a boxer. He was a Golden Gloves boxer. Mm-hmm. Didn't have any ground skills or anything. He was strictly a Golden Gloves amateur boxer. Pretty good from my understanding. He said, I heard him and his coach talking. I overheard him talking in the room over there. They got a plan. What they're going to do is they're going to come to you and they're going to tell you that, there's no way we can beat you. We're going to get out there, put on the show, and, for the fans, you take first place, he'll take second place, and we'll be all good. We're happy with that. And then his coach, then they said, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get him to kind of drop his guard, and then we're going to catch him. So they had plotted to tell me that they were going to go ahead and let me win because they knew they couldn't beat me. And then when I got a little lackadaisical, they were going to try to smoke me and try to knock me out. Mm-hmm. So Joel, that's what Joel told me. I said, yeah. Okay, great. I appreciate it. So sure enough, I'm out warming up. His coach came over and said, hey man, we know we can't beat you. You're too good. You're this, you're that. He said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to get out there. We're going to put on a little show, do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You take first place. We'll take second place. We'll be happy and we'll be good to go. I said, okay, yeah, sure. All right. Yeah. Got you. Good. Yeah. So we got out there. We're doing this and doing that. I'm waiting for it to come. Boom. Next thing you know, here it comes. Boy, he throws that big haymaker. I fade back. As he does, he overcommits and he falls right into inside my forearm. So he falls face first into this. I get him around his neck. I had no idea how to do a rear naked choke.
You learned that day, didn't you?
I learned. What happened was he committed so hard, he just stumbled and I faded and he fell right into it. So I ended up catching him around his throat and ended up stepping around behind him because he actually spun me around. He came so hard So I end up behind him. So I grabbed him by his neck and I pulled and I laid down on the mat and I crossed my legs. And instead of squeezing, I just started pulling. I was about to pull his head off. So he's back there gurgling. I said, tap, dude, tap. So sure enough, he ended up tapping. So I ended up winning my first tournament, full contact tournament, with a rear naked choke. It was a rear naked country boy, I'm going to grab you around your neck, pull your head off move. That's all that was.
I'm glad you elaborated on that. That is a hell of a story. And that's hard to top. Crazy.
Yeah, we had some, but that was some good times. And that was 1980. That was what, 12, 13 years before the 13. First UFC, something like that. Yeah. So, but it was a good times, you know. We just, and you know what I did with the money? I ended up winning $1,000 for that. $1,000. Thank goodness, because I needed to pay rent. I was behind on my rent. I sure enough did. Ended up paying rent and getting my rent caught up. I was good then.
I think we need to prepare a movie, The Real Karate Kid. The story of Ray Thompson.
Well,
who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought Ray Thompson inventing the rear naked choke as well? Wow.
Yeah, but since then I've kind of tuned up my game a little bit. I've gotten some real instruction. You know. Again, like I said, striking's my thing, but you know, I've had a number of years of jiu-jitsu work, different styles of jiu-jitsu, BJJ. My son-in-law, Carlos Machado, he's part of the Gracie family. He's cousins to the Gracies. So, you know, I have a jiu-jitsu, a BJJ lineage that's part of our family. So I'm blessed there for sure.
So, with Ray, obviously, you know, it's no secret you're a karate guy and you've had a lot of success. And we've seen a lot of success from karate fighters such as your son, Stephen, Lyoto Machida. What's your stance? Because obviously they make it work really well. And I feel like it's a discipline a lot more fighters should be adopting. Obviously, you see what Stephen does to people. He just glides around in there. And, you know, what's your opinion on it? Like, I feel like a lot more fighters need to start using the karate in their arsenal. And it's just, it hurts me that you don't see it as much.
Yeah, well, you know, developing a karate style for mixed martial arts, it's kind of a difficult style to learn, and it takes, you can learn it in a relatively short period of time, I think.
But mastery,
yeah. But the athleticism, the for the movement, for the footwork, for the leg position,
the general flow of things, I think.
Yeah, that's right. It takes time. It takes, you know, the Brazilians are all about mat time.
Yeah.
Well, that same thing applies for karate. It's about being on the mat, training and working in the dojo, training. So it does take time to develop that. I'm not sure what the term is, but to develop that true deep understanding and the ability to apply it fluidly, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
So it does take some time to do that. There are guys that are really, you know, in the MMA world, really starting to pick it up.
That's Stephen in a nutshell. You've just said there fluently, like, and again, I'll admit Machida, like, you see him in there, and it is years and years of the game, isn't it? But it's to see what he does in there. It's like, that is just levels, and you know, it would be. It's therapeutic to see, and it would be good to see more people try and adopt that approach. But it goes back to what you were saying. It is just years and years of mastery.
Yeah.
So,
of course, you know, there are exceptions to every rule. You have your Conor McGregors who start studying the style and picks it up pretty quick, especially when it comes to the striking, the hands part. Now, his kicking, he's got good kicks, Conor does. But, you know, he's just not quite as fluid with his kicks. But his hands, his head movement, his hands, his speed, accuracy, oh, my goodness. He's got – so it does take time to do that. But for the average person, it takes a fair amount of time.
Yeah.
But then again, there's exceptions to every rule, like I said.
So I just realized Lyoto Machida's got to have, you've got to be a fan of his. You said Carlos Machado is in the family. You're a karate family. Seeing a Brazilian master karate the way he did, you had to have loved him early on.
And jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
He's a
monster on the ground.
Yeah, he is. He's a monster everywhere. Yeah. But if you look at his karate style and you look at ours, even they have differences.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
I don't think he's quite as fluid, but he does have the speed. He does have excellent timing. Of course, he's powerful, Lyoto. But as far as the overall fluidness of his karate style, he studies a style called Shotokan. And it's a more of a classic, or more of a traditional style that he and his brother Shinzo have adapted to MMA. We've had the privilege of training with Lyoto and Shinzo. Stephen has, and Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva was the best. He was talking about somebody, but even to train with, he was amazing. He was when Stephen. This was before Stephen got into. Let's see. I don't think he had his first MMA fight just yet. I can't remember exactly, but no, he hadn't had his first MMA fight yet. He was looking to get into MMA, and Professor Carlos, my son-in-law, he's got brothers living in California, so we went out to California to train with one of Carlos's brothers, who also knew Anderson and Lyoto. He had a connection to Black House. Black House is the gym that those guys trained out of. So he was going to take us to Black House and introduce us to those guys. And we were like, oh, man, yeah. We were all excited about it. So he took us there, and Stephen was sparring with Lyoto. He did like a 5-minute round with Lyoto, and then he would do a 5-minute round with Shinzo, and then he'd do another 5-minute round with Lyoto, and then he would go do a 5-minute round with Anderson, and back to Shinzo. They just Anderson loved sparring with him. Shinzo loved sparring with him. Lyoto didn't like sparring with Stephen so much. It was a different. Stephen was extremely quick, and he would, he hadn't even fought MMA yet, so he was sparring with Lyoto, and Lyoto couldn't touch him, couldn't put a glove on him. Yeah, so Lyoto wasn't very happy. He was very quiet about it. He was very quiet, very silent. He's got that Japanese no expression. He had that going on, but you could tell he was fired up. So they were supposed to be doing stand up only.
Yeah,
Stephen and Lyoto, but so Stephen would go in and he would hit Lyoto, and he very excellent control. Didn't hurt him with anything. Stephen's the best about sparring with people and not hurting them. You excellent control, punches, kicks, it didn't matter. So you can tell Lyoto was getting frustrated. So Lyoto kind of maneuvered Stephen over close to the wall. You know what I'm saying? I could tell what he was doing, but I was going to see how it played out. So next thing you know, Lyoto blitzed Stephen. Stephen took about 2 steps back, and he bounced off the wall. So Lyoto grabbed him, hip tossed him, boom, threw him on the ground, and which wasn't supposed to be the plan, but Stephen popped right back up and was back at it. So it was all good. The head coach there, he said something in Portuguese to Lyoto, and Lyoto, he backed off. He was frustrated. But Shinzo, his brother, he was great. Anderson was great. Anderson, amazing. So he sparred with Anderson. So next thing you know, you see Anderson out there, he's sparring Thai style, Muay Thai. He had that Thai guard up, and the next thing you know, he's transitioned right into boxing. He's got that boxing thing going on. And then then next thing you know, he's got the karate thing. He's doing karate style. I saw him transition from Muay Thai to boxing to karate style to classic kickboxing, all within one round. I saw him transition to all these different styles, and they were so the transition was so crisp and so obvious. You could tell that, okay, he's boxing right now. He's doing karate right now. He was doing this with Steven. He was amazing. I
think with
and a gentleman too.
Like I was saying, from like the new era of fans, it's a shame because they've only seen Anderson Silva in obviously the recent fights. But for me, prime Anderson Silva, I don't think anyone comes close to that. Like I think people forget how good that guy was. He was amazing. Yeah.
And let me tell you what really made me a super fan of Anderson Silva. So he's there, he's training, getting ready for a fight. So we have all these training partners coming in. He had wrestlers, he had jiu-jitsu guys, all these people that came in to be there for him, to train him, to help him get ready. So he was doing this and he was doing that and he was doing this. When his training session was over, he grabbed the whole group, he put them all in the cage, and then he trained them.
Wow.
He put them through a workout to show his appreciation for their effort for coming in to help him. I've not seen it before, and I've not seen it since. I was like, that is a cool guy right there.
Yeah, that is a beautiful thing to see, especially in a sport like this. It's crazy to think about. You guys had Lyoto Machida, Wonderboy, and Anderson Silva and Shinzo Machida all in the same room. How was it seeing all of those styles? You mentioned how Anderson is a beautiful blend of styles. He's one of my favorites of all time. Lyoto and Wonderboy, you touched on, they have completely different styles. Karate has its own sub-styles. Anybody who's watching who believes karate is one thing, you're highly mistaken. There's forms of karate that wouldn't even resemble the same thing. So, but Lyoto is so much bigger than Wonderboy. I could only imagine how it was watching him get a little frustrated trying to catch up with your son, because Steven he's a lot leaner and his style goes a lot more with flow and movement. But Lyoto he's a little thicker in the legs.
Lyoto is bigger everywhere.
Yeah.
The thing was we knew that if you lock them two in a cage, Steven, especially then, would not have had a chance against Lyoto. He was just such a beast of a martial artist, of a karate fighter, of jiu-jitsu. And you know what I'm saying? It's just, so Steven's, I guess for the most part, we didn't know exactly how these guys how they sparred, how they fought. And our philosophy is we never go into another man's house trying to show up anybody. You understand what I'm saying? We don't want to make anybody look bad. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that, we don't want to go in there and get all beat up either.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So Steven's out there, he's hitting and moving. He would throw a move, he would throw a kick, and he would be out of there. He would throw a punch, he would be out of there. And I think I don't know if Lyoto was accustomed to that. Obviously he wasn't. So I think it frustrated him a little bit. And so he just really couldn't get anything going sparring with Steven, because Steven was just so busy and so athletic, and he's fast, he's fast. Yeah. So, but at the whole end of the whole thing was over with, everything was cool. But Lyoto let Steven know, you know what, you fast and you all this and you all that, but I still got your number. So he did. He closed the gap on Steven, blitzed him. Steven backed up. He got him, hip tossed him, boom, threw him on the mat, helped him up. He let him know that he's still big cheese.
A quick moment to show him, hey, you might have something, but you don't have it all yet.
That's right. Exactly right. You don't have it all.
Is there anything that Steven took in particular from training with Lyoto and Anderson that he implemented into his game, and Shinzo as well? Is there anything he took from them and actually directly brought it into his game, or is it just kind of the experience and the reps being with someone like that it was
it was a one training session moment. So it's not like we spent days training with them. It was just a one workout. And what Stephen took from that, well, I'll tell you what I took from it. I took from it that there are levels to every game. There's levels to jiu-jitsu. There's levels to wrestling. We had the pleasure of meeting Kenny Johnson. He's a wrestling coach there. He's a beast. Oh my goodness, Kenny Johnson. You talking about a tough dude? I mean, just a monster of a dude. We met him. We got a chance to do a little training with him, but to train with Anderson and to see. I mean, Stephen up to that point was the best striker. At least I like to think he was the best striker that I've had the pleasure of dealing with. And then we stepped in the cage with in the cage with Anderson. Then I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the next level. Anderson was several levels.
This is what we're shooting for.
Yeah, this is what we're shooting for, exactly. So I took from that. Yeah, we got a ways to go. There are more levels that we can and will have to achieve before we will be a success, a notable success in MMA, let alone UFC. We aspired to be in the UFC, but we were so far from that we honestly wasn't sure if we would ever make it. Whenever we went to train with Anderson and those guys, we were we hadn't even fought any MMA yet. So it was a eye-opening experience to see that there are levels and then there are levels. So we saw this. We saw the best. And when we saw Anderson and Lyoto, we saw the best. It was in a time where Anderson was on his A game. Yeah, amazing. We were in awe. I'm in the room with Anderson Silva. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how we were. It was amazing. And to watch him do the way he treated his training partners. Wow, how can you not love a guy like that?
Yeah.
So you gave me a perfect transition. I wanted to ask, what made you guys finally make the call and say, hey, Stephen, you're ready to do MMA. Let's take an MMA fight and let's make a run at this thing.
Well, Stephen had done a lot in kickboxing. Kickboxing wasn't doing a whole lot. Nothing really happening. There was no real place at the time. There was no real place to go for him in the style of kickboxing he was doing, which was what's called American rules kickboxing, which was all kicks above the waist. We knew that we didn't want to go into Muay Thai or even Dutch style because of the abuse that was going to could potentially be put on his knees. He had several knee surgeries. He had his ACL replaced. He shredded his ACL. It was a mess when he fought in the World Combat League. So,
was that the Raymond Daniels fight, Ray? Was it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it blew that knee out. He was out for 3 years had knee surgery, healing up, damaged it again, have to have surgery again. So it took us a while to recover from that.
And people forget the ACL used to be what the Achilles is today. A torn ACL used to be you're done. Yeah. Nowadays, we're lucky enough to where the ACL doesn't necessarily mean that at all. But back then, that was a killer.
Yep. Yeah. Thank goodness that the technology was such that he had it. So what they did with him, they had two options. They either use a cadaver ligament or go in and take out a piece of your patella tendon and use it. We went the cadaver ligament route because we were hoping that if things went bad again, that he would only be losing a cadaver ligament and that his next option would be
The patella.
go and get the patella and use it. Of course, if that were to happen, it would probably have been, his career had probably been over. But we didn't want to risk damaging his patella tendon when there was a chance a cadaver ligament would take care of it. And according to what the doctor said, he said he got a huge cadaver ligament, and he went in and he did what he did. And he did the surgery, and he ended up great successful surgery. So it was it turned out well, but we didn't want to risk fighting in a style where there's going to be a lot of kicks to the knees and legs. So we decided, you know what, not going to go anywhere in the rule style of kickboxing that he was currently doing. And he was training with George. George St. Pierre asked him to come up and train. So he was training with George, and he wanted to be a good training partner for George. So he started studying this and started studying that so that he would be a better training partner for George. So we'd gone up several times to train and help him prepare for fights. So his MMA skills started developing, and we decided, well, shoot, might as well give it a try. Yeah. Let's try MMA. So he had some MMA fights. He had 4 or 5 fights prior to going in the UFC.
Well, I mean, if you're getting working with GSP, Anderson Silva, Lyoto Machida, you might as well hop in an MMA cage. Yeah, they might be getting a little bit of the better of you in practice, but you're in the cage with those guys. It's kind of a given.
Yeah. So that's what we did. We took a chance. We got a call. There was I think a guy named Justin Edwards. He was fighting somebody. So Justin
is Justin Edwards injured. The bald one that was on the Ultimate Fighter? Okay.
Yep. So Stephen was scheduled to fight him. No. Justin was scheduled to fight somebody. Justin got injured, had to drop out. So they gave Stephen a call. His management was trying to sell him to the UFC. So they gave Stephen a call and said, okay, you're going to be fighting. No, I take it back. Justin didn't get injured. His opponent got injured, and they needed an opponent to fight Justin. That's what it was. So they called Stephen, and Stephen said, yes, we'll do it. Okay, so we're training. Next thing you know, Justin gets injured. He's out. So they really wanted Stephen to be on the card. So they called Dan Stigen in, and they both made their debuts. So it was
funny you mentioned that fight. Ben wanted to touch on that one. He made sure to leave it in the notes to touch on the Stigen fight. So
yeah, just I've got to. I'm sure you'll break it down like how the fight went, but it obviously finished with that. It was a 1-2, and then he bought the rear leg over the top. And Stigen didn't see it coming. And I've got to say, Ray, I must have watched that knockout probably about 500 times since it's happened. The technique behind it is just, well, it's exactly everything that you guys epitomised. But just what was your thoughts going into that fight? Obviously, first one in the UFC, and the way it finished was spectacular.
Well, of course, we had no idea what to expect when it came to the UFC, the promotion, the whole logistics of being a part of the UFC. But it was an amazing. The whole experience was amazing. And a lot of folks don't know, it was the first fight of the event. It was the first fight of that night. GSP literally walked out from the back, escorted Stephen out to the cage during that event, which was huge for us. Just the fact that he would just take the time to come and be a part and walk us out. And then Stephen get in there and do that 1 or 2 back leg to the head. It was getting technique of the night or something like that. First fight out, winning a bonus. It was Well, I mean, it kind of set the pace or set a standard, or, you know, it let everybody know, okay, we're here. Okay, we're here.
And if you actually look into it as well, that knockout, Stevens has also got one which is virtually identical. He did it in the World Combat League. Like, so that wasn't a one-off. Like, that was perfect. Like, he knew what he was doing there, and it's just crazy the way. Yeah,
that was his first fight in the WCL too.
Oh no way!
Yeah.
Wow.
And
beautiful.
But if you go back, in my opinion, the WCL was by far the more enjoyable, I guess, or the flow of that, the application, the technique. It was just it was a much more beautiful application of those three moves, at least in my opinion. It just flowed so well. Technique, hip, shoulder, feet pivoting, all that. That was just a huge, beautiful combination he did there.
Yeah, and obviously, that was what started off everyone knowing about Wonderboy, and then, you know, since then, I think he got an unfortunate fight with Matt Brown, was it, that didn't go his way? But since then, I think people forget who Stevens actually fought. Is like Johnny Hendricks, Jake Ellenberger. I think
Woodley
people forget
twice.
about the Robert Whittaker fight as well. Like, you know, he's fought the absolute best in there, and he's beat all these guys at the Woodley. That was something I wanted to touch on with yourself, Ray. Like, with the Woodley fights, obviously the first one was a draw, and there was a lot of speculation about Stevens should have won that, and then even the second fight, that again very closely contested. What are your thoughts with both them fights, and, you know, what do you see looking back on them? And
well, okay, so we essentially made the same mistake pretty much both fights. And what I mean by that is Woodley then was a monster, and is a very intimidating.
He was a force. People were talking about him like he had a potential to get to that GSP level. People now can drag him all they want, but a few years ago, the same
in his prime, he was
ever.
another level. Yeah.
He was a scary guy to be around, and we didn't fear him, but we had a huge amount of respect for him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
we knew that, and of course, as you saw, Stephen experienced it to a degree. We knew that he had explosive power. Explosive. I mean, out of the chutes, boom, power. And of course, he caught Stephen with that. So we were leery or ready for that to happen. At least we thought we were ready for and kind of sort of waiting for him to throw that big looping bomb for Tyron. Of course, he was able to apply it, but for Stephen to weather it and come back and do like he did, I honestly thought Stephen won both of those fights. Of course, naturally I would, but just looking at the fights, now Tyron did more damage, so you got to give him that. But when it comes to just outworking, Stephen outworked him on both fights. But anyway, it is what it is.
We have a scoring system. We have a scoring system for a reason. You might as well use it.
Yeah. That's right. Right. So Stephen's in there fighting, and it's his responsibility to make sure everybody knows that he won the fight. So we didn't blame it on the judges. We didn't blame it, it's our responsibility to go in there and beat the other guy and do it convincingly, do it in such a way that, everybody was convinced. Because obviously we didn't do that. So it was a bit of a heartbreaking, especially the second fight. It was heartbreaking that it didn't go our way, but here we are. We still at it. We going for it. We going for it again if they give us another chance.
Yeah.
So you touched on the power that you saw him get hit with by Woodley, but obviously he survived. He survived that power. How does it feel? Because not only are you a coach, you're still his dad. You can see where he gets his looks from just looking at you. Ben's a dad. I've got my first coming. How is it to see something like the end of that Anthony Pettis fight? It's got to be a little more than just a student, because man, that's got to be rough to witness.
It was. I never thought it would happen. I honestly never thought Stephen would ever get knocked out, especially after eating the shots that he took from Woodley. But Pettis put it on the button. I think Pettis is not that hard a hitter. But you don't have to be.
You just have to hit where it needs to be.
In the right place.
That's right. He was laser accurate. He put it right on the perfect spot. I saw it happen. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm looking. I'm seeing Stephen is getting near the end of the round. Stephen pieced him up. Now, let me say this about that fight. Our plan was, Stephen's bigger, stronger, faster than Pettis. He's all that. He's more dynamic, more explosive. Our plan was, when the bell rang, Stephen makes it across the cage and beats him up and finishes it and go home. Not play around, not goof around. But as soon as that bell rang, gate closed, that buzzer went off, Stephen started this tap, 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 tap. I'm thinking, Stephen, no, stop the plan. Stop the plan. What are you doing? You got to go. So anyway, he decided to change the game plan as soon as the gate was locked, and the result happened as it did. He gave Pettis the opportunity to bounce off that cage, throw that Superman, whatever that was.
The Showtime Superman, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah, man. It hit him right on the chin. Down Stephen went. I was looking at it. I looked. I looked at my coach. I looked at the cage, and neither one of us could believe what we were seeing. We had what just happened. We were like, oh man.
I think everyone, because it was a fight Stephen was clearly winning as well, and you could see the damage on Pettis, and you're just like, what just happened there? But it's really good to hear that from yourself as well. Obviously, I've been talking to John, and me and my wife, we had our first one in last November, and
congratulations.
Thank you, sir. And I've said straight, I've boxed in the military, jiu-jitsu, I've done it all, and I want to get him into it as soon as I can. But then there's a part of me, it's like I don't know if I could see him go through, get hurt. You know what I mean? That father, yeah.
Started him at 3 years old. I started all my kids at 3. Got 5 kids, 3 boys, 2 girls. They all started at 3 years old.
Yeah.
Let them develop, put them in a karate style. Check around. A style that has good movement, good footwork, hands up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a lot of crap styles out there. I'm just saying.
Something of good quality.
You gotta do a little look, and try to find you a system that not only teaches good technique, but also tries to instill
personal values.
Yeah, personal values, life skills that you want your child to learn. So that's what we try to do here at our school. We don't just want our kids to be able to fight. We want them to, be good kids. We want them to be respectful
and you can see it every time you hear.
Yeah,
well, I haven't had the pleasure to hear your other children talk, but when you hear Stephen, you can tell he was raised right. You can tell from a mile away. So you did a job well done there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's he's 38 years old. He's 38. He's still my kid, though he's though he's 2 years away from 40, he's still my kid, and he's still a work in progress.
He's still killing it as well. He's still killing it. If we look at his last 2 fights with Luque and Jeff Neal, I mean, that is just, I mean, it's prime Wonderboy, as everyone say. But like, that's obviously set him up for this new fight with Burns. And it's just a segue into the Burns fight from yourself, Ray. Obviously, he's coming off his loss to Usman. And when he first started out, obviously everyone's like, he's a grappler, which you'd think would be the nightmare matchup for Steven. But a lot of people sleep on Steven's ground game and his wrestling. And I don't think they appreciate it. You just look at the stats, like, you know what, no one can keep him down. And he you know, his get-ups are world-class. But what do you see with Burns? Like, are you nervous about anything going into this fight?
Of course, I'm nervous every fight. It doesn't matter. I was nervous the first fight, and I'm nervous. Steven's had 78, 79 fights total, kickboxing and all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm nervous every one of them.
Yeah.
But I'm really confident in his skill set. I'm confident in his conditioning. He's always in shape. He can go. I mean, he's just always in shape.
Mm.
So what makes me nervous is maybe he just gets lazy.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think he will. But of course, I didn't think he would ever get knocked out either.
Yeah.
So, you know,
you never think it'll happen until it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just hope he stays on his head in the game. He, when it's fight time, he gets out there and he does exactly what he needs to do to make sure Burns doesn't do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen with that fight, I think Burns is going to start off striking with Steven and come to realize that it ain't working. Then he's going to start shooting. Either that or he's going to shoot right off the bat.
It may be the bull and the matador in a sense.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, those are the two options I think is going to happen. He's going to start off striking and realize it's useless. So I'm going to shoot. Or they're going to bump gloves and Gilbert's coming at him right off the bat, real hard to clinch, get them hips, get them legs, and take him down and do what he thinks he wants to do. That's what I think is going to happen.
In a fight like this, right? I think it's really important to see what happens in the first round. I think starting quick is pretty important because, like you said, Gilbert's fight style, if he takes the lead, you're going to be playing catch up. And I think the strategy to beating Gilbert Burns is staying ahead of him and making him guess and keep up with you. You can't play keep up with someone who's that great everywhere.
That's right. He's it's going to be an interesting fight for sure. So, but we're preparing.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I think Steven's been well prepared for all of his bouts. You see, he comes to fight every time. I wanted to touch on, what do you think of the current welterweight rankings outside of Wonderboy and Gilbert Burns? What do you think of those other guys there at the top? Obviously, Kamaru Usman is the closest thing we've seen to, well, obviously completely different fighters, but the closest, I'm not sure how to word it, closest thing we've seen to GSP since at that weight class. And then we've got Colby Covington, and that looks like that rematch is going to be happening. We've got Leon Edwards, who's looking good. We've got a lot of fun stuff going on. And then Masvidal, who Steven's got a win over, and it was a masterclass. Steven.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the current standing of the welterweights in the UFC?
Well, right now, it's interesting times for sure. You have Covington, who's up there. I wouldn't say he's holding up the division, but he kind of sort of is. But of course, Usman has something to do with that. So Usman, I think Usman is trying to get as many fights as champion so that he can earn that championship money and then ride off into the sunset. 2 or 3, 4 title fights, pile that money up, and then, phase right out. That's what I think might be happening. Otherwise, why would you call out Michael Casilla, guy ranked number 7 or whatever he is?
Yeah.
Jump past Covington, jump past Leon Edwards, jump past Wonderboy.
If you're willing to fight Chiesa, how are you not willing to fight Leon Edwards at the same time? So
exactly right. So I think he's trying to maybe fight fights that he knows he can win.
Yeah.
So that he makes that championship money, and then, like I said, ride off into the sunset.
10 years from
big
now,
old saddlebags full.
10 years from now, they won't remember the number next to the guys' names. They'll remember the number next to the title defenses. I think it's a good business approach. And I think in a weight class that's as hotly competitive as 170, it is the perfect game plan for someone who stylistically matches up beautifully with the whole division. And the only other person who has that grapple heavy skill set in that style, it would be Colby. And they're clearly, that rematch took a while to happen. But I know Ben wanted to touch on it, and I did too. How do you think Steven would do? Because he's got very underrated takedown defense. You rarely see him on his back.
Yeah.
And I think the Burns fight is actually a perfect step into whatever's next. The UFC, it's hard to tell when a title shot's coming. If Leon Edwards gets a win and Steven gets a win, who knows what lines up at 170. So how would you see him defending the takedowns from guys like Kamaru and Colby in particular, those two?
Steven's got excellent takedown defense. I think Colby would be a tougher defense than Usman, personally.
Could you elaborate on that?
I think Colby would be tougher to defend the takedown because he's considerably more relentless. I think he's more relentless in the shot than Usman is. Usman will shoot, and if he gets it, he'll follow through. Colby will shoot. If he doesn't get it, he'll shoot again and shoot again and shoot again. He'll almost belly crawl to get to you. You know what I'm saying? Usman's a little bit more technical, I guess you might say. Or
he's willing to step back and stand around a little bit more, throw a couple jabs before shooting again. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. But I think Colby would just shoot until he got a hold of something. And then he would try to make that takedown happen and then do his ground and pound and all that he tries to do. So personally, I think when it comes now, I think Usman's a stronger athlete. I think he's stronger. He's got more steam in his punches. I'm not saying Colby can't hurt you. He can. But I think Usman's got a little bit more pep in his step.
I mean, we saw that against Masvidal. Didn't see that coming. And it just shows you've got to watch out. Like I thought that Kamaru was going to come in and it would be an exact replica of the first fight, or he'd just take him down and hold him down. But I did not expect to see him stand with Masvidal, and definitely didn't expect to see that right hand.
Him.
Yeah,
man, he cracked him. So
that punch is you see that punch in movies, picture perfect on the button, the cinematics, the sweat falling, the way Jorge fell,
laser accurate.
Yeah.
And nobody saw that coming, especially Masvidal. But it was a master class of striking. And when he fought Burns with that jab, oh my goodness, that jab was boom, it was rocking. He was making Burns, he was putting Burns in a bad way with that jab.
But looking forward to seeing Steven get back in there. And then, I think that if he beats Burns, he obviously it's a bit of a weird division with what's going on at the top, but I think he should really get a title shot. And I'd love to see him fight Kamaru. But moving on, just to sort of close, Ray, like from yourself, have you got anything in the pipeline upstate, or anything for yourself that you've got in the future?
Well, we're of course we're here. We're trying to develop other fighters to make it to the big leagues, Bellator or UFC or One or some of the bigger shows. For me, that's my goal. I want to say I got at least 2 athletes competing in the UFC. I don't want to be known as the one fighter, Jim. I don't want to be known as that. It would be a substantial feather in my cap, and it would kind of vindicate me a little bit in the fact that we weren't a one-hit wonder kind of. I'm not a one-hit wonder kind of coach.
Yeah,
I would like to have other athletes, in the one of the big shows, preferably the UFC. But that's for me. Stephen, his goal is won that title, and of course I share that goal with him. I'm doing we both work, we both train, we both work hard to prepare him, get him prepared for that championship. And he's this close. It would be a sad day if we didn't make it. So we're shooting for it.
Yeah.
Fingers
and
crossed.
I'd love to see him make it, for someone who's been doing this as long as what he has, and not just in MMA, but, the kickboxing, fighting at that high level, I think. And for such a, I'll say it, for how nice Stephen is, it'd be good to see the good guy get one, and I think it's a credit to yourself, Ray. You've raised a fantastic fighter, and you've got a great thing going on at Upstate. So I hope that you do get your second fighter in the big game.
Thank you so much. Where are you? Where do you live?
So I'm originally from Nottingham, where Dan Hardy's from. But I was in the military, and so I've moved around a lot, and now I'm in the northeast Newcastle area. Okay. So, but I've moved around a lot in the UK.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's.
So is Dan going to fight again?
It's one of them. I know he's been given the all clear, and he trains all the time. And he every now and again you see him. He does have a little back and forth with fighters on Twitter, and I think he was on to Diego Sanchez a while ago. Ray, I'd love to see him back in there.
I mean, Diego Sanchez versus Dan Hardy wouldn't be a bad fight for someone outside of the UFC to put on.
Yeah,
exactly.
That'd be great. That'd be a great fight.
I'd love to see
boys. They're rock and rollers.
Yeah,
and I hate the fact that Diego. I know the guy's been in the UFC for a long time, and he's been treated rough. But he's a fighter, man. He's a fighter, just like Dan. They just fighter. They get in there and they put on a show. That would be a great fight. That would be a good, fun fight to see.
And it would be nice to see those guys get a nice payday. Everyone who's a fan of MMA likes Diego Sanchez, and everyone who's a fan of MMA likes Dan Hardy. I would love to see it.
That is true.
You've been awesome. You have been so easy to speak with. And
well, thank you.
I think large fans of you and Stephen and what you guys had going on. But after this conversation, I couldn't name many people that I would rather have a conversation with than you. Thank you for all of the advice you've given. Thank you for everything. And especially, we went way over our time limit. We went well over an hour. So that was incredible. Is there any way I could bother you in closing to just say, hey, this is Ray Thompson, and you've been listening to the Uncaged podcast?
Young Cage?
Uncaged.
Uncaged. This is Ray Thompson. Thanks for tuning in, and you have been listening to the Uncaged podcast.
Beautiful.